We'll never smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some dixies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house, and I have the incredible Sue William Silverman in the back, and we're going to be talking about her book called Selective Misdemeanors and all of her other good books, and we're going to have a good, strong tea being served today. And Sue's tea is rigorous, obsessive feminist. That is the tea that she has given me. So we're going to talk about those three words as well. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Get over to all of Miss Liz's platforms, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of those good platforms. Give that a like, follow, and subscribe, and you can get these tea times out there, because each of these tea times do resonate with someone out there, and they do make a difference. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro, and then we'll get Sue in here and we'll spill some tea together. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real-life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome back to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where we gather not just to talk, but to listen deeply to ourselves and to one another. There are guests who come to share expertise, and then there are guests who come to share courage. Today, we welcome a woman whose life's work has centered around truth, not the polished kind, but the honest kind. Sue William Silverman is an award-winning memoirist, I'm not saying that right, poet and educator whose writing explores memory, trauma, identity, and the transformative power of storytelling. She's the author of several acclaimed books and has taught creative writing nationally, guiding countless writers to find their voice through vulnerability and craft. Her work has appeared in literacy journals and major media platforms, and what makes her voice so powerful is not just she writes, but what she invites others to write. Sue believes that when we give language to our experiences, we reclaim ownership of them. And that is powerful. Sue, is truly an honor to welcome you to Tea Time. Thank you for bringing your wisdom, your courage, and your voice to this table today. I want to bring in Sue and let's spill some tea together. Oh, did we lose Sue? Let me see. I think she popped out. I'm just going to pop up her book so that we'll have a little bit there. And let's see if she pops back on. She might have had a disconnect. We're just going to wait and see if she pops back on. She might have been disconnected. We do have some glitches going on. People are coming in from different countries and different communities. So let me get Sue in here and let's see what's going on. I'm just going to send her an email. We do have glitches and we are live, so we have to just keep going with the show. Let me see. I'm just going to leave the comments open for anybody that would like to know more about the book. And I'm going to pop up her website so you guys can check that out. And I can find out what's going on. She was just in the background, so let me see what's going on. So I'm just going to give you guys a little insight about who Sue is. She's written some books. Selective Misdemeanor is the book that we'll be talking about today. She's also written Fearless Confessions, A Writer's Guide to Memoir. Another book that she's written is Because I Remember Terror, Father, I Remember You. Another one is Crayons, Colors for Serial Killers. And her poem is If the Girls Never Learn. She's appeared on Cooper 360, Discovery Channel, Montan Williams, and Ricky Lake's show, PBS Books. She's a Lifetime TV movie of Love Sick, which I highly recommend you guys check out as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about Pat Boone. She wrote a book about Pat Boone's fan club and his 80th birthday party. So we're going to talk about a little bit of that as well. And then we're going to talk about her picture in second grade where she was left-handed, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. I'm hoping that she can get back in. I have reached out to her, so let me see. There she is. Hi, Sue.
Hi, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. My internet just went down.
There we go. And that's, we're live. It's a live show, and all these glitches do happen, so I'm glad that you're back and that you can make it. So Sue, I'm just going to pop your book. Your book is up. So if you want to just talk about selective misdemeanors, and then we'll get into some of the questions that came in for you.
Right. Yes. Sorry about that, everybody. And yes, my new book is Selected Misdemeanors, Essays at the Mercy of the Reader. And it's a collection of flash essays, which, but the overall theme is kind of, the narrator is searching sort of for safety and home and comfort, but that's part of her, what she wants, but she's butting up against these sort of misdemeanors that sort of prevent her from getting what she wants. I mean, she makes bad decisions. Now, I should say that these misdemeanors are emotional misdemeanors. They're not crimes in a legal sense. And, I've never spent time in jail, nothing like that. But there is this kind of tension between a yearning for home versus the ways that I, as narrators, kind of sabotage myself. Like I struggled with a sex addiction, so I would have affairs with, inappropriate men, emotionally dangerous men. So kind of the arc is about that. How does this narrator and will this narrator kind of find a sense of home by the end of the book? So that's generally what it's about.
Sue, I want to get into that sex addiction because I talk a lot about different addictions online, and we haven't talked really much about sex addictions. So talk a little bit about that if you're open to that. How old were
Sure.
you when it started, and how long, and what kind of resources did you go to for help for that?
Right. So, nobody's born an addict, sex or any other kind of addiction, of course. So, when I was a young girl, my father sexually misloved me. And so that's really what caused it. I mean, the message I got from my father was that, love equals sex and sex equals love. So I didn't understand how to differentiate that. So, then when I just got older and began, the age of dating, say in high school, college, that, I mean, the addiction really pretty much kicked in then, in that I was I would become attracted to men who really did not know how to love me. And I mean, of course, I didn't know that then. I know that now. But at the time, I thought that these sort of dangerous men, if they wanted to have sex with me, that meant they loved me. So it's really about, I was kind of, I mean, it's a sex addiction, but I was also really looking for love. But of course, I was looking for love with men who would not know how to love me. And then finally, when I was in my 30s, is when I kind of hit bottom. And so I got into therapy and treatment for that. I spent 28 days in a rehab facility for that. My second book, Lovesick, is really about that. It's about sort of the 28 days I spent in rehab recovering from it. And then, of course, I was also just in individual therapy after that as well.
So, Sue, with your book, Selective Misdemeanors, I believe there's a story about a police officer in that one, right?
Yes, there is actually. And I'm it's a very short essay. As I said, these are kind of flash essays. And I met him at a conference that I was attending where I was actually giving a speech about child sexual abuse. And he was in the audience. And, because of course, law enforcement plays a role in, trying to keep children and women safe. But after the speech, he sort of kind of started flirting with me some. But at that point, I knew, no, this is not a good idea. But yet I was sort of attracted just to, what I was attracted to, nothing ever happened with him at all, but I was attracted to that sense of power that he had, that I wish that I had had that kind of power. Like, where was he when I was a kid and I really needed him?
Were you attracted to the uniform?
Yeah, it was kind of like the uniform. And I listen, I am completely, for gun control. I know, there are way too many guns, particularly here in America. It's really scary. But yet, in that context, the uniform, and just he had all of these accoutrements around safety, things that could keep women safe. And so that's what I was attracted to. But I realized, no, Sue, that's not a good idea.
I'm just asking because a good uniform turns me on too. So.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, Sue, we had some questions that came in about selective misdemeanors, and I want to get those out to you. I want to understand why the book, when I got the cover from Shirley, I was like, is the book cut off? Is it like the description of that book? Tell us about the cover, a little bit about that, and then we'll get into some discussion.
So as you can see, the text, the letters are almost cut off, just not quite. And I think that I didn't design it. I had nothing to do with it. But when I got it, I really kind of loved it. And I think that the rationale behind it is because it sort of represents the idea of a misdemeanor, that things are kind of awry, things aren't quite lined up, things are sort of off kilter. So I think that the text for this book is supposed to kind of convey that idea exactly.
Cut dry, right? It's when I seen it, I thought, oh, maybe their image was cut off in that.
No.
I went and I looked for it, and I was just like, no, it's like that all over. So that's the way the book is.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just giving, sort of the text, the title of the book is sort of trying to convey the message of the book about, selected misdemeanors, that this narrator has sort of some issues and that she is kind of, off kilter a little bit and not just doesn't have good margins or good boundaries around her.
I kind of think it's cool. Like I
I do
liked it.
too. Yeah. I really love the cover as well. Yes. Thank you.
So how did you get the colors of it?
They just chose it. I really had absolutely, I mean, I wrote the book. I got all the words, but the cover is all, the publisher chose all of the cover. And you might see here in the corner, there's a goldfish, but it's upside down, it's belly up. And that does speak to one of the essays in the book, whereby this goldfish is a metaphor. And the essay itself is about a time when I was shortly out of college. I had a boyfriend I was dating, and but he didn't really love me the way I wanted to be loved. And then he was going off to boot camp into the military. And when he was gone, I had an affair with his roommate, which was not a cool thing to do at all. And that's, of course, is one of my misdemeanors. But I also, sort of for company, I bought this goldfish and had him in a little, bowl. And of course, things did not work out with the roommate. He broke up with me. And the boyfriend at boot camp, again, he couldn't love me either. And then the goldfish dies. So the goldfish then becomes sort of a metaphor for this, not just, death or something like that, but really sort of, for loss, that I cared about the roommate, I cared about the boyfriend, I cared about this poor little goldfish, but the goldfish died. And so it's really a metaphor representing how the narrator feels a real sense of loss and kind of alienation, stuff like that. So that's why this kind of upside down goldfish it represents that essay in this book.
So kind of like the loss of love.
Exactly. Loss of love, loss of relationships. Yeah. So it's, kind of a sad metaphor, but that's what it's supposed to represent.
Well, one question that came in is, what do you mean by misdemeanors? And why and why did that word feel right for this collection?
So by the word misdemeanors, as I said, it's not, misdemeanors in the legal sense at all, nothing like that. But it's really just making a lot of emotional mistakes, bad decisions. So misdemeanors, but it also, the book isn't really all that dark. There's some dark essays, but it's also supposed to be sort of ironic. So selected misdemeanors kind of gives this sense of kind of irony that, they're misdemeanors, but are they really, so you made some mistakes. So it's sort of just playing around with that word. And as I said, a lot of the misdemeanors are emotional. For another example, I was living in Galveston, Texas for a while, and I was married, and my husband was out of town, and I was hanging out at this kind of a seedy Gulf Coast bar, and had a little bit too much to drink, and I sort of made a decision, I think I'm going to get divorced. And, one should not make a big decision about your life in a seedy bar on the Gulf Coast with a little bit too much to drink. So it's sort of misdemeanors like that, just really not being in touch with my feelings and just making a lot of bad choices for myself.
Why did you choose flash nonfiction as the form for these essays?
I chose flash because two sort of main reasons. One is that I'd written long form memoir, and also I'd written two books that are memoir in essay form, but the essays are long. So I'd never written much in short flash fiction. Flash essays means that they're short. And I really had never written that many before. So I wanted to grow and stretch as a writer and try something new. So that was, one motivation. But the other is that the more I thought about it, it's like we do tend to write about these big events in our lives, like growing up in an unhealthy childhood or struggling with an addiction. These big events are like, illness, somebody dies, these big events. But when you think about it, what about all of these really short, smaller events in our lives and how much time they take up? I mean, really, these smaller moments take up much more time in a way than these big events do. But yet we tend not to think about them as much. So that's what I want. That was sort of my challenge, is to try to discover meaning in these sort of brief moments of time. How can these brief moments of time kind of illuminate something much larger in life? And like this little story with this goldfish, I mean, it was just like this brief relationship. I had the goldfish that died. You know, you wouldn't really think about that as something worth writing about. But yet, through the writing process, I was able to discover, you know, that this goldfish was a metaphor, and that this essay really was more about loss and loss of love and all of that. So it's just, it's a collection of these sort of brief moments in time, and try to cast illumination on them and show how even in these short moments that those two can convey what it means to be human.
So do you use metaphors for flash writing?
Yes, absolutely. They're really important, really. I mean, they're important, I think, in all creative nonfiction, but they're particularly important in flash because you don't have a lot of space to create a whole narrative arc. Like, you don't have 200 pages to show a whole narrative of something happening. You have, you know, maybe 2 pages, 3 pages, you know, maybe 6 pages, but it's short. And so the way to convey the emotion of the piece and to sort of cast light on the narrator's interiority is really letting metaphor do the work. Like, I didn't have to spend pages talking about how, you know, this boyfriend didn't love me and what happened with his roommate and all of that, which if I'd written that whole story out, it would have been, I don't know, many, many pages. So instead, by introducing this goldfish that becomes a dead goldfish as a metaphor, then that represents that dead goldfish represents this whole idea of the loss of love, just with one brief image. And that's why it's really, you know, particularly in flash, why metaphor is so important.
I love metaphors because that's what I do with tea, right? Tea is a metaphor of the past, the present, and the future, that we all have one. You know, we all have different pasts, all different presents and different futures, you know, and some of us don't even see our futures. The legacy of our story is led into the future. You know, and I was given this at the age of 4 by my Oma, and that's what brought Teatime to life, was my Oma, and giving me the metaphor of reflecting, recharging, releasing, you know, because it was short and fast. It had to be short and fast. And that's kind of like what the flash writing is all about, right?
That's exactly right. It really is. It's like finding meaning, you know, like but I mean, the interesting thing is that, so the structure of the essay is very small, you know, but then by using metaphor, it opens up into this vast world inside. So you kind of have the best of both worlds, you know, the small outward structure, the short form, but through metaphor, you're able to convey this much larger sort of emotional universe that lives within it.
That kind of goes back to the fish, right? On the
Yes,
book.
exactly.
The fish is a little guy, but it's in a big bowl, the big bowl of life.
That's right. Very good. That's very good. Yes, that's exactly right.
Well, you place these essays at the mercy of the readers. What does surrender offer?
So it's like I'm letting the reader know about these misdemeanors, these mistakes I made, the bad choices I've made. But I'm wanting the reader to understand and sort of forgive me, kind of care about me anyway. And so, but I can't control that, right? I mean, you're sitting at home, you're wherever you are, you're reading, and you know, I'll meet some people who read my books, but mostly not. And so, but it's sort of like a plea, you know. Okay, here's what I've done. I've made these terrible mistakes, but here's why. I'm sort of also showing you the motivation. Can you still care about me? And so, but I have to put it, but it's at the mercy of the reader. You know, it's like I have no control over it.
Another question that came in for you today, Sue, is how do small, seamlessly ordinary moments become emotionally synaptic on the page?
So really, again, it's through metaphor. Now, let me just sort of explain a little bit about metaphor, though. a metaphor is not some kind of weird, mysterious thing. A metaphor is really taking something, a sensory image, a detail, something tangible, like this goldfish, and writing about it in such a way that it conveys a metaphor. So that's really what it is. So a metaphor could be absolutely anything, a glass of water. I mean, those knickknacks and things that I see behind you on your bookshelf. It can be anything that's sort of in your immediate environment where you're writing about, where the action is taking place. So it's finding these images and not just saying I had a goldfish, but the way I describe the goldfish will sort of alert the reader that, okay, this goldfish is really a representation of the loss of love.
Well, it kind of goes into the next question. What role does metaphor play in helping you understand the contradictions?
Yeah, I mean, we're all such complicated people, right? And you can't just write like I said at the beginning that this book is a search for home. But if that's all it was, that might not be that interesting. But the narrator's searching for home, but bumping up against that search are these misdemeanors, these things that the narrator is struggling with. And so it's that conflict, that inner turmoil, that conflict is really what the book means to convey. And metaphor plays into that because a metaphor, it can be more than one thing. I mean, initially, this goldfish was a metaphor for love and for companionship. I got it, the goldfish, when my boyfriend went off to the military. So initially, this goldfish metaphor for love, and I could, take care of it and everything. But then by the end of the essay, the goldfish dies, and all of a sudden now it's a metaphor for this loss of love. So that conflict is what I think makes writing creative nonfiction really interesting, because we're not just one thing. We have these conflicting feelings inside.
I never knew today was going to be about a metaphor. And I love metaphors. I'm a big philosopher. Like I love deep conversations, right? And keep it simple. Bring in the little things and they make the biggest impacts,
Exactly. And, it's the kind of thing where, so somebody reading that essay, so let's say you haven't had a boyfriend who went off to boot camp. You haven't had an affair with a boyfriend's, roommate. Maybe you've never even had a goldfish. So our exterior stories are going to be different. We don't all have the same experiences. So then the question is, well, how can I care about your story? Well, the way you care about the story, my narrative, if you haven't had any of those same experiences as myself, chances are at some point in your life, you have experienced a sense of loss of love, loss of a companion, whatever. And so by writing metaphorically, by having this goldfish be a metaphor for this loss and loss of love, that's how you can relate to my story, because we all have these sort of similar emotions.
And we talked about that before we went live, right? As our stories, reading other people's stories, we have similarities. Our stories are completely different, but we feel not alone when we're reading someone else has gone through similar pain.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I get, emails all the time from people who read my book and sort of thank me for kind of telling their story too, even though it's not exactly their story, it's just that they could relate to it and relate to the emotion of it. And so hopefully, like what the books I put out into the world, my words that I put out into the world can touch somebody. But at the same time, when they contact me and tell me that they've read my book and what it means to them, then I'm also empowered. So it's sort of like we all empower each other.
But Sue, and last year I started this tea time with all of the same question. And I just remembered that I didn't ask you that question. So who was Sue as a little girl and who is Sue now?
So as a little girl, little Sue was kind of scared, timid, did not have a real strong sense of self because my childhood, my family was so emotionally unhealthy. So I was sort of lost. Um, but yet there was a bit of a stubborn streak in her that not very many people saw. But I think that's really what kept me going, even in the middle of growing up in, this unsafe family. So, but it took me a while to really access the fullness of that sort of not just stubbornness, but sort of power. I mean, because sort of the power to survive and to keep going against, a lot of odds. And so now, sure, I still get scared and I can be timid at times. We all are, I think. But I feel much more of a sense of myself, who I am. And a lot of that is really due to writing because, writing creative nonfiction is really a journey of self-discovery, enlightenment. And I didn't understand a lot about what different events in my life meant to me until I wrote them. I mean, sure, therapy helps, of course, but in a different way, writing also helped. And so now I have much more of a sense of my own power and a sense of who I am. And I can sort of claim myself, yes, I'm a writer. I also teach writing. And so I can feel like even though growing up was sort of tough, I was able to still find a path that was meaningful to me.
So did you use writing as a healing tool as a little girl?
No, I didn't. I never wrote at all. I didn't keep a journal. I didn't keep a diary. I just not in the least. I didn't even write bad high school poetry that a lot of people write.
I graduated and I was like, I'll never write, and then became a writer.
Yeah, no, absolutely never wrote. No.
So how old were you when you started writing?
So I was in my early to mid 20s, I think. And I can't even really tell you what happened to prompt me to start writing. It's sort of like one day I just thought, I think I'm going to, and I started out writing fiction, but it was really bad fiction. I think I'll write a novel. So this was a long time ago. I had a typewriter before computers. So I just rolled a piece of paper in a typewriter and started typing. And so I wrote a few really bad novels. They're terrible. They're not published, thank goodness. I would be embarrassed if they were. And then it was really my therapist who said, why don't you write about yourself, which had never occurred to me. So it was really at his urging then that I switched to writing creative nonfiction and memoir. And that first memoir that I wrote is Because I Remember Terror, Father, I Remember You, which is about growing up in this sort of unsafe family.
Do you want to share a little bit about that book?
Sure. So my father sexually molested me growing up. And this book, it starts in the present when I'm in therapy and I'm in a safe place, because I think that's sort of makes a reader feel like they're in safer hands. They know it's going to be all right. But then, so most of the book then is a flashback about growing up, with my father sexually molesting me and my mother sort of just kind of pretending she didn't know. I think she did know, but sort of pretending she didn't know what she knew or didn't see what she saw, and just sort of being checked out. And I have an older sister who now claims that our father did not sexually molest her. I don't know if that's true or not. It's hard to know. But it sort of covers my growing up sort of as a child through high school, and it stops when I go away to college. And, then my father, of course, does stop molesting me because child molesters molest children. And then I was an adult. And so, and then it ends with me again safely back in therapy with and recovering from it.
Sue, by sharing that story and writing that story in a book, how did that help with your healing journey?
Well, I think it was really freeing in a way. I mean, I could, before I wrote, it's like everything that happens to us is sort of, inside of us. It's sort of like the emotions, everything. We sort of get stuffed full of, everything that happens to us, good and bad, of course. But I was holding everything inside, and the writing process is amazing because as you write, you're really releasing your words, things, it's coming out of you. And so after I finished writing the book, it's sort of like I felt like a weight had been lifted off of me because now the words were out there. And it's not about getting published. I mean, I'm lucky that the book did get published, but it's really about getting the words out of you. So now they're on pieces of paper or they're in your computer or something. They're out there, which means that they're not in here. They're not weighing you down.
I completely understand that because when I wrote my story for the first time, it was like the garbage being taken out.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. It is. I know.
And now you just answered what book I'm going to grab.
There you go. There you go.
Because I had asked Sue before we went live what book I should grab from all of her collections, and I know which one I need to grab. So Sue, I want to get into your tea because the tea that you gave me is a pretty strong tea. It's rigorous, obsessive, feminist. The three words that you gave me for your tea. Tell me how you gave me those 3 words.
So I actually had to think a lot about that because, 3 words, that's a lot of pressure, right?
I know everybody's like, Miss Liz, that's a hard question. I know. Like, but it's in you guys. I can't tell you who you are.
I know. It's a good question, though. Well, okay. So I'm rigorous in that I'm very hardworking. I'm very compelled to like if I'm writing, I spend a lot of time on my writing and I have to do a really good job. So I'm really rigorous about getting it right. Nothing is perfect, of course, and I have to learn when to let go of it. But I'm really rigorous with myself in terms of professionally taking my writing very seriously and revising time after time after time. And also, so I teach at a low residency MFA in writing program. It's called Vermont College of Fine Arts. And I'm very rigorous about working with my students, making sure that I give them as much as I've got to give to really help them improve their writing as well. So I'm really just thorough, I think is another word maybe for rigorous, very thorough. And then, yes, I'm very obsessive, which is a good thing if you're a writer, because what do we write? We write our obsessions, right? Yeah. And so I have tons of obsessions and they're they're all over the place. Like they don't fall into one neat category. I mean, growing up, I was obsessed, say, with Pat Boone, who is a very, if you haven't heard of him, he's a very sort of squeaky clean 1960s pop music idol. But he was known as the opposite of Elvis Presley. Like Elvis was sort of the bad boy of pop music, and Pat Boone was sort of the clean cut good guy. And then I've been obsessed with okay, this is going to shock everybody, so hold on.
Buckle up.
Buckle up with Jeffrey Dahmer, who's the cannibal, who was who lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I mean, it's not like that I liked him or approved him, but it's just I was obsessed with how, when I saw him in an interview, how lost he seemed. Like he didn't give this image of being like a serial killer. And so just like that, we're talking about kind of this inner conflict, like he seemed really calm and very lost. So just that disconnect between his terrible, horrific actions and what he seemed like in interviews just sort of intrigued me. Then I've been obsessed with Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors. I've been obsessed with Adam Lambert, who was on American Idol and became the lead singer for Queen. So my obsessions are all over the place. Plus, I'm obsessed with things like I lived in Galveston, Texas, I mentioned. It's a beautiful, really interesting island in the Gulf of Mexico. And I've obsessed with that. So it's really writing is like finding, if you're a writer out there, make a list of everything that obsesses you, because everything that obsesses you is either could end up in an essay or a book or something. And I mean, my list could go on for pages and pages. Like, for example, I mean, this book, Selected Misdemeanors, there's 71 essays in this. That's 71 different obsessions. So, like, I was obsessed with this goldfish, so I wrote about it. So, yeah, I take my obsessions seriously. There are a lot of them. I take them seriously, and I want to write about them all.
Well, I think it's interesting, your T, because you see, you open up doors. And Jeffrey Dunnan, like when you said disconnect, like when I looked at him and I watched his movie and his story online on TV, I was just like, he seemed like the everyday guy.
Right? I know.
Like
And
your next door
yet,
neighbor.
that's right. That's right. He's so kind of lost and quiet and didn't have that kind of macho sort of like vibe going that a lot of serial killers have. I mean, he just looked lost.
Yeah.
And which of course does not forgive any of what he did is horrible. It's horrific. But yet it's sort of fascinating, if you really want to understand human nature. And as writers or as readers, we do want to understand human nature.
Yeah, because I'm hooked on serial killers. Like what snaps in them, what makes them turn?
Exactly.
What happened in their life that they haven't been able to release? It's like when we release a story, right? And the garbage comes out, but they never had that chance to release that garbage. So the garbage just kept getting, it fermented inside of them, and it turned them.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. Because I said earlier that, I wasn't born having this sex addiction. You're not born a serial killer either. When we're little infants, we have, I think, a lot of empathy. We're, just very loving, we want to be loved. But then things happen. And that is what can turn you. And I think ultimately these bad things or unhealthy things or scary things that happen to you, you either turn them sort of inward and just let them kind of take over your life so that eventually it explodes, like, say, what probably happened with Jeffrey Dahmer. So when it comes out, it can come out in this unhealthy way or it can come out in a healthy way. And for me, I mean, I'm really lucky that I turned the unfortunate things that happened to me, I turned them into something positive, by writing and teaching.
Well, that's the thing, right? Taking the pain and turning it into a purpose instead of turning it into something that a serial killer or a mental institution, like those things as well, because you can't release. For me, myself, Sue, writing saved my life. Everybody asks me what saved me. Writing.
Yes.
Just
and
getting
for me
it
too.
out.
That's right. No, that is so true. That's so true. And so both of us, I mean, we're really lucky that we are writers, that we found that and that we pursued it too, because, once you start, sometimes it can be hard to keep going, but just to, I think that is, we really are lucky that's how that's the path that we chose.
And your last word that you gave me for T was feminist.
Yes. So I think that we pretty much live in a very paternalistic society. And I think that there are so many men who still sort of want to dominate. And I think that one of my goals is to sort of fight against that. And one way I do that is through writing, is to write about, women's stories, women's narratives. And, I think we all have a story, and all our stories are important. So if there are guys out there, yes, your story is important as well. But I think women's voices have been silenced a lot more than men's voices have been silenced. So I think it's particularly important for women and, for myself that we tell our stories, that we get our narratives out there in the world, and to show the importance of a woman's journey through life.
Well, I think for generations and centuries, women were told to be silenced, right? To obey, to listen. Elizabeth Parkin, I think her name was, in 1860, her husband locked her up because she defied his beliefs. And then she had went into a mental institute, and she found out that many of the women that were in there were not mentally ill. They just didn't obey their husbands, so they locked them up in institutions.
Exactly. Yeah, that was rather common. Yeah. And or you think of the Salem witch trials, women were trying to come into their own, and they had their own beliefs, and then they were accused of being witches and they were burned. I mean, there are thousands of examples, but yeah, so I think that as a woman, I mean, that's how I sort of find my sense of feminism, is just that women's voices are important and women's stories.
Absolutely, and opening these doors and conversations. And, for all the listeners out there, how many of us women feel silence even to this day?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Even with the titles, even with the leadership roles that we have, do we still feel silent? These are questions that us women should be asking ourselves.
Exactly. And supporting each other. I think it's so important for women to support other women, to kind of be lifting each other up.
Absolutely. Like, empower women is not just support the woman when it benefits yourself. Support the woman, and the woman will support each other. And I think that's how we're going to grow.
Exactly. Oh, I completely agree. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So I want to get into your favorite color, because I love it. And it's my birth color. So it's my birthday's in May. So it's emerald green. So why emerald green is your favorite color?
And that's so, I don't even know why. I mean, I can't even say why, except it's just so beautiful. And like, my birthstone is diamond, and that's but it's sort of boring, I mean, it's just like, yeah, they're supposed to be worth a lot of money and all that, but it's just sort of, I don't know, transparent. I mean, they're not that interesting to me. So I always wanted emerald to be my birthstone. But I was born in April, so it was not. But yeah, emerald is just, there's something about it that I find the color, even though it's bright emerald green, is sort of a bright green, it's also something sort of soothing. It's sort of like the color of leaves of trees and grass. I mean, it does kind of represent nature in some ways, but I just love it. I mean, that's about all I can say.
I love it. I love when my guests give me not just a color, like just purple, pink, green. She actually gave me emerald green. So,
very specific.
Specific green. And that's what I like. I like when you guys dig deep. I asked you to give me one word to describe yourself, and you gave me the word complex.
Well, yes. So talking to me, you could probably see that I'm complex. I mean, and it really has to do with sort of seeing many sides to things. It's not being sort of too narrow-minded. I mean, I see complexity as a good thing. So I'll tell you, it's not completely a secret because other people know, but sort of, I don't usually talk about it in public. But so when I was applying for college, to get into college, you have to take the SATs, these tests. And I did terrible. I did absolutely, they're all multiple choice. I could not have done worse on these SATs. Now, am I stupid? No, I don't think I am stupid. But why did I score so poorly? It's because you have to choose one right answer. I can't choose one right answer, because I could get sort of narrow on the test, like they'd give you 5 choices, and I could sort of narrow it down to 2. And I could say, well, it could be this because of, blah, 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 or it could be that because of blah, blah, blah. So if I could have written an essay about it, I would have done fine. But no, for these multiple choice tests, you have to choose one. So I think that's just sort of an example of why I think I'm complex, in that I can't just narrow things down, and I don't come up with easy answers to things. I want to really, and I think that also comes with writing, in that my writing is not simplistic. I mean, it's not just like looking for, I'll just write this, and this is like this, I'm just going to tell you what this was like. But I have to really dig deep and understand something in a lot of ramifications. For example, just to go back to that poor little dead goldfish. I mean, like, I could have just left it at, I got the goldfish because I was lonely and I wanted companionship. I could have left it at that. But then no, but the goldfish died. So that means that the goldfish the metaphor of the goldfish is more complex. What else does the goldfish mean? So I have to dig deeper and discover that the goldfish is also, this metaphor for loss of love. So it's just a matter of seeing the world. The world is very complex. People are complex. Just trying to understand the fullness of all of that and
So,
not go for easy answers.
Sue, do you think the metaphor begins with the image or the emotion?
I think it could be either. And it's sort of like hit and miss, really. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like in this goldfish example, the image came first, and then I had to try to understand it. But let's say I didn't think about the goldfish right away. And I was writing this essay, and I said, oh gosh, this really is about love and then the loss of love. So what else was going on in my life at that time? And then I probably would have hit on the goldfish. Oh yeah, there was this goldfish. So it doesn't matter where you start, whether you start with the feeling or the image, because you're going to end up in the same place. If you have an emotion, I'm sorry, if you have an emotion, what's the image that represents it? If you have an image, what does it mean emotionally?
Well, it goes right back to like for my metaphor, it's the teacup, right? Everyone thinks it's a beverage. It's not the beverage. It's what's in the cup. What are we putting in that cup? Are we putting tea? Are we putting milk? Are we putting coffee? Like, what are we putting in that cup? Just because it's a teacup doesn't mean that the tea it's a beverage of tea.
That's right. You have this vessel, and what do you fill up a vessel with?
Yeah, absolutely. So what is one sentence you've written that you'll never forget?
Oh, that is such a good question. Actually, it's the first sentence in this book because it sort of sets up the book, and it sort of kind of sets up, not just this essay it's in, but it sort of sets up the whole book. And it didn't come to me right away, but then when I did, I thought, oh, that's the perfect opening line for the selected misdemeanor. So it's the essay is at the Apollo Theater, and the first line is, my father sexually misloved me growing up, but that's another story. So what that line does is that means that, well, this whole book is not going to be about how my father misloved me, but yet in some other ways it is going to be about him. It's not going to be overtly about him, but everything that I became, all the choices I made evolved because of that. So it's both another story and this story. So I kind of like that sentence.
It kind of goes into the small events, right? That leads to the big event.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because in fact, the essay that starts is about this magician. Talk about obsession. When I was like in third grade, I saw this magician live in this theater, and I just was completely obsessed with him, his whole outfit and everything. And I volunteered to be like his, to sort of help him with this magic trick. And it's like nobody was going to stop me. It was like I was going up on this stage and I was going to be his assistant. And so, so that was one of my obsessions. So that's what the essay is about. But yet, the obsession and all of that probably evolved in some way from what had happened with my father.
And so what do you hope readers feel or question after finishing this book?
Really, that we are all human, and that we don't expect perfection, that we all make mistakes, but that even though we make mistakes doesn't mean we're bad people. It just means that we are human. And so both embrace your own humanness, like don't be too hard on yourself. If you make a mistake, if you mess something up, cut yourself some slack. You can still love yourself. Say, okay, I made a mistake, but it doesn't mean you're a bad person. And to sort of cut the same slack with other people. Like we have run-ins with people, like I'll say something like, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that to this person. I think, how could I have done that? But then I can apologize if that's necessary, or else just, again, cut myself some slack. So yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I'll know better next time. Just to be, know that we all have our selected misdemeanors, and to know that it's kind of okay.
And Sue, do you have any workshops or any new books that are coming out that you're working on that you'd like to tell us about?
I have started a new book, but I'm not sure where it's going yet, so it's too early for me to even talk about it. This August, I will be teaching a workshop at Cal Arts in Southern California. It's a conference for all genres of writing. I'll be teaching a creative nonfiction workshop. And if you are interested in it, you can find my contact information on my website. Just email me and I will let you know about the conference.
Absolutely. Awesome. I like to always get that information out there in case any of the listeners are listening out there or anybody that catches the replays on Tea Time with Miss Liz. Sometimes we're looking for that workshop and that writing.
Yeah. It's the first week of August.
There you go. So you have lots of time to plan it and get settled.
Right.
I want to talk about creme de menthe. Admire or avoid?
So creme de menthe is there's another essay in this book that's, again, an obsession. Creme de menthe, by the way, is emerald green. Just to have everything sort of tied up in a neat bow here. So my parents used to have these parties. I grew up in the West Indies. My parents had these parties, and I was sort of like kind of a spy on them. And they were from the veranda outside, and some of the women would be drinking this beautiful creme de menthe, which is emerald green. And I was just obsessed with, not with the party or with the women or the men or anything that's going on, just with this beautiful color, emerald green. And so after my parents died, I actually found this bottle of creme de menthe, and I kept it. I mean, I still have this bottle. It's probably from, the 1960s or something. I don't know. And it's just because it's so beautiful. But the essay itself is really, yes, the exterior story is about, watching these people drink creme de menthe, but it's also about sort of the ephemeralness of beauty. I mean, they drink it and then it's gone. And, but also just how joyful something like a beautiful color, a beautiful liqueur can be.
I like how you put that creme de menthe as beauty.
It is. I mean, it's emerald green and it's so gorgeous. And maybe actually, now that you mention it, maybe that's where my love of emerald green came from.
It was from the creme de menthe. Sue, what final message would you have for all the listeners today?
That if you're a writer, know that your story is important. That even if you don't want to get it published, even if you're scared to show it to anybody, just write. Writing is the important thing. So just write your story, write your narrative, because think of it this way. If you don't write it, nobody else will. And then your story is sort of lost forever. So kind of honor your journey, honor your narrative, whatever it may be, and know that it's important. And that if you do decide to then go ahead and try to publish it, that it will resonate with other people. So, kind of sort of find your courage and start putting your words on paper. But if that's not what you do, then just, I hope you choose to read, because reading is a way to make those human connections as well, to read other people's stories.
Well, it was a real pleasure sitting with you and getting to know about the goldfish. I love the goldfish. Like, I'm in love with the goldfish now.
I am too. And just so you know, his name was Freddie. Freddie.
Oh, so he had a name too.
He had a name. His name was Freddie the goldfish. Yes.
So Freddie was a lost love.
He is. He is a lost love. I know.
Well, it was a real pleasure having you here, Sue. Thank you so much. If you could just read out your website, I'm going to pull it up again and spell it out for all the audio listeners.
Right. So my website is SueWilliamSilverman.com. That's SueWilliamSilverman. So it's all one word, SueWilliamSilverman.com.
Absolutely. And check her out. Check out these books. I know what book I'm grabbing, so I really want to thank you for that, Sue. I'm just going to do a closing summary of what Tea Time was today, and we'll be back at 7 with a second Tea Time today. As we close this Tea Time, I want to take a moment to say thank you. Sue, thank you for reminding us that storytelling is not about reliving pain, it's about reshaping it. You've shown us that memory does not have to remain a wound. It can become understanding, it can become art, and it can become healing. What you brought to our listeners today was not just insight into writing, it was permission. Permission to examine our stories with compassion, permission to separate who we were from who we are becoming, permission to speak without shame. And to everyone listening, I invite you to reflect on this. What part of your story deserves your kindness instead of your silence? You don't have to publish it. You don't have to explain it to anyone else, but perhaps it is ready to be acknowledged by you. This cup offers awareness, it offers courage, and it offers reminder that your voice has value simply because it is yours. Sue, thank you for pouring truth into this space. And to our listeners, carry this cup gently. Let it sit with you. Let it stir something throughout and steady within you. Until next tea time, I'll see you guys at 7 and we'll do this all over again.
Thank you.